So there are about a third, I think, of people who just cannot tolerate it at all. Their stomachs won't allow it. They get pancreatitis. They get all sorts of horrible things. But for most people, the side effect is basically that they lose their appetite.
Do we have the likes of Ozempic in New Zealand?
Hamish, we don't have Ozempic in New Zealand. Like most other things, New Zealand deals with drugs that come from 2 decades ago. And, you know, in the same way that we're waiting for HRT patches for women, we're waiting also for Ozempic and all these other things. There's a huge production shortage at the moment. And these companies, Novo Nordisk, which has Wegovy, and Ozempic, which are the most popular and the sort of the pioneering ones, and Eli Lilly, which is coming up behind with a couple of others, and they all are. They're throwing billions of dollars into manufacturing these drugs across America. But no, in New Zealand, not yet. I read some advice in Australia that said patients are not allowed to be prescribed any more Ozempic because there's just none in the world. But obviously Australia has it.
So obviously proving really popular, anti-obesity sounds good on the tin, but what sort of side effects are we looking at from these drugs?
So there are about a third, I think, of people who just cannot tolerate it at all. Their stomachs won't allow it. They get pancreatitis. They get all sorts of horrible things. But for most people, the side effect is basically that they lose their appetite. Food stays longer in the system, so your stomach doesn't empty. And it also puts you off alcohol and smoking. I'm not exactly sure what the mechanism is there. But those are the main symptoms. But the thing is that when you take Ozempic, you really can't eat fatty food. You can't eat fried food and junk food because it irritates the lining of your stomach with these drugs in there. So people are changing their habits.
That must be of quite some concern to some big global food companies?
It's been a huge concern for global food companies. And last year, McDonald's, Yum Foods, Wendy's, all those kind of companies did lose market share because there was a huge panic about it. It's since, it costs about $1,000 a month in the US to buy Ozempic. So a lot of people cannot actually afford to have it. But once it's cheaper and it's more mass produced, it will be, I think, prescribed widely, and it will go global, and it will come to New Zealand as well.
Are we seeing those concerns? They still feel, it's obviously in situ, but still feels some way away as well. Is that impacting the likes of, say, restaurant brands on the NZX? So
I approach restaurant brands because, for me, I felt like they should be panicking about this, or at least thinking about it, maybe not panicking. They didn't want to talk about it. I mean, one of the things about restaurant brands is it's now very illiquid, the stock, because it's 75% owned by a Mexican company. But, it is an issue, certainly for restaurant brands in America. There's been reports written about how they are going to cope with that. They are said to be able to cope with it because they have one healthy option within their portfolio, which is a subs company, it's a Subway type company. But Restaurants brand in New Zealand does not really have a healthy option, unless you call Taco Bell healthy. Some people might. But also having markets in different areas is good. Anyone relying on the US consumer market is finding a problem because most certainly people's appetites have changed enough to make a dent in that business.
Do we have a sense, maybe from overseas again though, of how some of these fast food companies are reacting, or what they make of drugs like Ozempic? Are they pretty vocal against them?
Well, it has been said that some of these company heads had been ringing Novo Nordisk and sort of going, oh my God, what are you doing? You're trying to put me out of business. But probably more of them are changing their menus. They're reducing the size of their portions, which of course, as you might remember, has been a problem for fast food. They're doing that probably for cost reasons as well. But, people are eating less. People on these drugs eat less fatty. And also a cost of living crisis is also impacting fast food restaurants. So all of these things are playing a part.
For more content just like this and all the latest business and political news, head over to mbr.co.nz.